First, I'd like to say thanks to Industry Now. That I think they've put on a fantastic day one. And second, before we get into it, you're probably, instead of sitting there thinking for the next 30 minutes, I wonder how he hurt himself. Why is he in a sling? So the reality is, so that we don't have to talk about it, about 6 weeks ago, I injured myself, had surgery, and I have 38 hours and 58 minutes until I come out of the sling. And yeah, and if you ever really want to challenge yourself, try and brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. It's very, very interesting. So yeah, today, basically, I want to talk about four main things over the next 30 minutes. So number one, being agile and innovative in an evolving workforce. Number two, legislation and its financial impact, the true cost of total rewards, and then how do you measure ROI. So before I get started, talk about innovation and evolution. Somebody in the room, I think I saw, had a pin of a Nokia phone. Where are they at? Somebody has it. No? Okay, somebody had a pin of a Nokia phone. So from Nokia phone, I think that was my first phone, actually, coming out of high school. And now we all have, probably most of us, at least the Apple lovers like myself probably have an iPhone 15. But my point is, you think back the evolution of people not having a cell phone, and now every year they want the latest and greatest with the features, the next new features. I'm a huge Apple fan. I'll probably reference them a few times today. But so let's get into it. So we talk about evolution and where we go. And so technology in the last 3 years, whether we're talking, kiosks, or I think everybody likes to just say the word AI during presentations. So there's my one time I did it. Robotics. Then we look at, evolution with branding, right? So I had to throw I'll call it my alma mater up there, Outback Steakhouse, where I got started. But that was their first their first logo, their current logo. This one I actually had to do some research. I did not know that Starbucks started with that logo to today's. And then, of course, my Apple's going to have to start paying me at some point today. But my point of this is that we see all of this evolution happen, and there are some really good brands out there that do this with their people. And I think that we need to start investing more of our time evolving when it comes to our human capital. That was the point. So kind of break it up, in my opinion, where we were, kind of where we are, and where we're headed. So where we were, going back 10 plus years, very employer friendly, right? Everybody was pretty much fully staffed, had a stack of applicants, people that wanted to work, had a lot of choices. Work hard equals do what you're told. That was the mentality. He just showed up, you did what you were told, you thought you did a good job, you cashed a paycheck, went home. I think much more of a militant style leadership. Here's your checklist, do this every single time, every single day. And then very, very financially driven. Everybody just wanted to make the most money possible. They'll work 60 hours a week, 2 jobs, etc. So then we look at, fast forward, kind of where we are today. So we're obviously changing to an employee-friendly workforce. There's more options, whether it be now we're competing with retailers more prevalently, or grocery. They have services like DoorDash and Uber Eats that you can go and drive for instead of having your typical 9 to 5, or for us in the restaurant business, different shifts during the day. And then a change in workforce, how they feel kind of about the companies they work for. Which leads me to bullet 2. I think that companies' involvement in their communities and the environment is becoming increasingly more popular, especially today. This has been mentioned several times. I didn't get a chance to go to every breakout today, but I want to say that I heard soft skills mentioned at least 3 times today, and I think that that's very true. Today, more than ever, our team not only needs to be trained, informed, but they want to know why. Why am I doing this? Why is that so important? Where I don't think that we saw that 10 plus years ago. And then lastly, very culture-driven with what I like this term, living wage. I think that Everybody's looking for that, the ability to do their work, but also be compensated fairly for that. Flexible scheduling is more important nowadays, and then remote work. Remote work's huge. I know that that's probably a tough environment from a store level standpoint, but when you talk about above store, everybody's looking for the ability to work from home. And then kind of looking ahead. Now, I know this term I probably stole from my alma mater. It's something that was ingrained with me for 15 years, but taking care of your people and your people will take care of you. So my belief, and I've said this for a long time, and it's actually been changed in the last 3 years. Not changed, it's altered, but I've always said that we're actually in the people business. We just happen to serve food. I think in the last 3 years, we have to addendum that just a bit, and we're in the people business. We just happen to serve food with technology. And I think everybody agrees to that point. I think in the future, we're going to become more prideful in the culture within the organization, the quality of the organization. This is another one mentioned several times today, emotional intelligence. And I think that from a leadership standpoint, it's becoming probably the number one thing that our workforce is looking for. Am I going to show up every day? My leadership's going to act the same, right? No roller coaster of emotions. It's just, this is how Eric is every day, whether it's 70 degrees and sunny, or it's snowing like in Chicago, or the hurricane's coming from Tampa where we are. And then lastly, again, increased dependency on tech. So I'm fortunate enough to work for what I would consider a smaller company. We have 70 restaurants, 10 non-traditional restaurants, soon to be 71. I actually flew here last night from our new store, flying back there via Charlotte to get the sling off real quick, but headed back there. But my point with the technology and the size of our business is I actually oversee the tech side of our business too. What it's given me is the ability to meet and learn a lot about technology. And what I really have come down to with technology is there's lots of options. I'm not going to do the plug like everybody has been all day, because I think there's a lot of great partners, great solutions out there. The one thing I will say when evaluating technology is that the most important piece is what you do with it. Whether you're talking about data, everybody wants to use that word data. I want data, but what are you doing with the data? Because you can have several dashboards, but if you don't do anything with the information, you're basically just paying a SaaS fee for nothing. And then, lastly with your team, right? I pulled this out of a book, which I'll get into books later, but and I'm an audiobook guy, by the way. I can't stand to actually read from paper. Every time I see someone with a book, I think of like newspapers delivered to the house every day. But 3 things to ask yourself, I think, every day. Number 1, does your team know how much they matter to you and to your company? I think we need to spend more time every day letting everyone know how much they matter to you and like I said, your company. Number 2, is your team clear on how they're being measured daily? Do they have a very clear expectation of whatever job, duty, wherever they are in the organization? I'm talking our drive-through attendants trying to beat the 45-second window time, or how many upsells the cashier did, or how perfect the tenders were today. There has to be some measurement tool used on a daily basis. And that's above store too. I know I'm referencing a lot of store level items, but this is also applies towards above store as well. And then lastly, do you take interest in getting to know your people? I probably rewrote that last one a few times, because I think the quote out of the book is, do you take personal interest in your people? But I think sometimes people can probably get in trouble with a little bit being too personal with that one. But what this is basically, at the end of the day, is you get a team that is fully engaged within your business. They have the buy-in because they know that you care about them. And they also know that you're taking interest in their life inside and outside of work. Again, the HR in this room probably would tell me be very careful, Eric, about saying those things. Okay, so I'm going to move into legislation. I promise this is not going to be like my political way of getting into facts about legislation, I promise. So I think I actually, first line, no politics, just facts. And this is important. Obviously, there's a lot of people in the room, operate businesses in a lot of different states. But my take on legislation, so let's start with how do you stay informed? Are you taking the time, whether it's a lot of information publications, there's a lot of places you can get alerts on what's coming. You can go to the extreme part and get involved in local legislation. And I'm going to kind of throw some scenarios here. So you look at increased minimum wage or leave laws or meal breaks, things like that. I think too many times we spend too much time investing in that the problem is coming. We have a problem. There's a problem. Oh, minimum wage is going to go up to $20 an hour or $25 an hour. We need to reallocate that time to prepare how we're going, because it's coming, right? The reality is it's not going to be 5 years from now or 10 years from now. The things we're hearing, the things we're talking about, it is coming at some point. So instead of allocating that time complaining or worrying about it, let's put a game plan together and execute it. So, I think with the first one, with minimum wage, the toughest part is scenario-wise. Let's say your minimum wage is $12 an hour, and you have a team member that's making $15 an hour, and your minimum wage goes up $2 an hour to $14. Is that $15 an hour just going to stay there? Are you okay with saying, hey, the floor has been lifted, so you're above the floor, it's okay, I don't have to worry about you? I'm not telling you the right answer. I'm just saying it's something you should consider, because I know that if I'm doing whatever job it is within your restaurant, and the guy next to me who's getting minimum wage just started, I know that he's getting that lift or she's getting that lift. So what about me? And I think that you could probably slice that a lot of different ways. Obviously, we all have financial responsibilities, to worry about. But at the end of the day, you start to think about, those team members that are in that range of that 15, how much they do for you, what the efficiency rate, what their tenure is, things like that. And you make your own decision. But at the end of the day, it's your decision, and you have to put some type of plan together so that way when it does happen, you're prepared to execute whatever that may be. I like the bullet, top 40 you can't live without. I try and use that on a daily basis, looking at the team, not saying that obviously everybody's important, but I try and also focus in on just under half of the team members that literally I wake up and think, I want you to work with us forever. I know that that's probably not going to happen, but I like to think that way. Innovate, right? I mean, we just talked about technology. There's things that can help you, right? Whether it be kiosks, robotics, streamline your processes. I think we saw a lot of that during COVID, woke us all up. And the last one too, remove dead menu items. Find SKUs that can be removed off of your menu. And again, these are just examples. The reality is that these laws change on a daily basis, and quite frankly, a lot of them, even though we might not want to admit it, need to change. I mean, I look at some of our team members that are in that $12 to $15 an hour range, and I say, how do you, live? How you can afford rent? You start to, extrapolate what they're making every 2 weeks. So a lot of these laws need to change, and I think that the whole point here is that we have to get ahead of it. We have to have some type of plan. And then the last two, really the second to last, it's not going away. Don't bury your head in the sand. Get out in front of it, get a plan together, and execute. So moving into total rewards and the true cost of those. So there's a lot on this screen, I know, but I wanted to make sure that everything went back with you, I promise. So benefits. Who really benefits from the benefit? I like to say that because, and I know Nina mentioned it earlier, but you can make these decisions in a boardroom and think it's the best decision you've ever made. The team member's going to absolutely love it, I promise you. But then it doesn't get any traction. And it's because, quite frankly, we're not engaging the team that it actually affects. So getting people together, and I think Nina and her team do a fantastic job of building these little subset groups of get feedback, whatever we do, whether it be benefits or the training that goes out and how we can get better there, et cetera. But I strongly encourage you to get some type of council together and make it, team members, management, et cetera, and get different viewpoints. Development programs, personal and professional. One of my favorite things probably on a day-to-day basis is the development of the team. We started, I guess, maybe 2 years ago, we started really pouring a lot of time and energy into our operators. So we developed book clubs where we would pick a book and we'd all, read it. Somebody would have to come back and tell us what they thought and try and translate it to our business as much as possible. We've also started doing case studies from HBS. We've done fireside chats as well. And we just opened it to the operators at first, and what we found is go around and start talking to the team and the shift leaders, and we have salary managers as well. They're like, hey, I hear about this book club. How can I get in on this book club? So then we just opened it up to everybody. And then all of a sudden, again, we're a smaller brand, but we'd have those book clubs. There might be 300-400 people on there. And we'd have people coming out of their shell, hourly managers, hourly team members, explaining what that chapter of that book, meant to them after reading it. Personal assistance, again, helping. I think one of the tragedies is that we don't develop and teach throughout foundational learning what credit means or home buying. So offering some type, even if it's not financially driven, at least offering some type of education around those things. Environmental advances, kind of touched on that earlier. Financial planning, daycare, maternity and paternity. I think that having at least a plan, again, financially it can be a little cumbersome, but what is your maternity and paternity leave? The expectation, of our team members coming back to work after having a child after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks is just insane to me. Work weeks, this is a big one. A lot of conversation lately about this. And are we being flexible enough? We write a schedule, we write a template based off what we think we need for the organization. I would flip it on it, invert it. And I would say, okay, let me get really good people, get their availability. It might be more to manage. I don't know if I could do like Greg said earlier and do 3 months worth of schedules at a time, but I wrote that one down to take back. My point is if you have to break up schedules, it's not what you want. It's not an 8-hour shift or a 6-hour shift. If you can work around their schedule, again, they will be much happier. The environment will be much happier. 4-day work week, not something that we're doing yet. I think that is becoming increasingly more important to people to have more time off. Work just as much, but more time off, if that makes any sense. The big one here, we 3 years ago, we implemented this, some more leadership positions on a 40-hour work week basis, right? Our salary positions typically work around 50 in our restaurants. But people have other things going on outside of their work life. They have children, they have education, they have hobbies. So how do we get to a point where we have flexible, management positions within our organization? And there's that remote work again. This one's really important to me, this DEI groups. I think, again, Nina's done a fantastic job within our organization, but having a more open-minded culture. I think too many businesses, even still today, you look around the boardroom and everybody looks the same. I think we have to change that. And I think that the first step in doing that is understanding what it is that we can do better to get those individuals moving up within the organization. And then this one is real frequent, actually. I think maybe about a month ago I read an article. I'm trying to remember what company it was, but they got rid of the formal biannual reviews, and where you'd sit down, an hour and a half, you'd have a conversation. The team would walk away with maybe 2 things that they could remember from that hour and a half conversation. And doing more frequent, but not as time consuming. It might be a weekly thing, whether it be a team member, manager, et cetera, where it's just 10 minutes, but that 10 minutes is solely focused on their development from that previous week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, getting more feedback to them. So this I threw up, and you can use it for whatever size your brand is. But we talk about the financial impact, right, of rewards, benefits, turnover, retention. So it's obviously very simplistic, and I used $1,000 as the consideration of what it cost for me to train an hourly team member. So basically, you look at about the industry average over the last several years in my industry, in QSR alone. There's, I think, for the most part, it's different across the segments, but about 180% is your average annual turnover percent. So if your current average is at 100%, and your average head count per store is 30 team members, essentially that 80% reduction in turnover, that restaurant is hiring 24 more individuals that year than the other restaurant. And then it's just extrapolated out. So basically, for a brand our size, I used ours, 60 units, that 180% annualizes to $1.5 million for our brand. Now, there's some brands in here that are 3,000, right? So you could imagine what that number would look like. So you look at total cost and how much are you really investing in all those things that we just discussed on the previous slide. I will tell you that a lot of that doesn't require a lot of cash. It just requires time, energy, and caring about the team to do those things. And then, of course, I broke it out. You know, we've got training wages, trainer wages. You know, we do food shows, uniforms, backroom check, all that. That's how I came up with 1,000. And then the one thing I think sometimes we don't necessarily build into that turnover cost or retention and what it's going to cost you is the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost that if you did have lower turnover, higher retention, how much more salesmanship would you have within the organization? Your average check goes up, your upsells go up, the hospitality goes up. And then you keep people, obviously, longer because you keep that group of people together from a tenure standpoint. So from today, just again, 4 easy takeaways. Number 1, stay close to your team. Again, I know a lot of HR in here, not too close. Stay close to your team and understand what is truly important to them. And I purposely put that number 1. I think that we feel like we do a really good job with this, but I still think you can do better. Legislation is happening. Stay informed so you can manage the business from a position of strength versus just letting it happen to you. Identify your true cost, right? Budget it, plan it, communicate it to the team. And then know what's worth it. You know, does it impact retention, increase productivity, shape your culture? I would stick to just try and make sure that we make the investments and get the ROI on what it is that we're doing. And then there was a quote that I heard. I listened to a podcast from the guys up in New York, the Hospitality Hangout. I don't know if you guys have heard of those 2 guys from Branded Hospitality. It's a really good, once a week, they do a podcast with the CEO. And I was listening to their CTO, actually, Phil Crawford from CKE. And I haven't quite memorized it, so I might mess this up. But essentially, where he was headed with it was instead of just taking the path that's already there, go a different direction and leave a trail. I promise after I have a cocktail or 2, I'll remember what the quote was exactly. But I think the takeaway there is don't just keep doing the status quo, right? Push out there, try and do something different, try and innovate. And again, the team will tell you, where you need to go, essentially. So thank you.